Hello and welcome once more to ITU Telecom World here in Geneva in Switzerland. And at the moment I'm talking with Robert Pepper, who is the Vice President of Global Technology Policy with Cisco. Robert Pepper, you're very welcome. What, in your view, are the most pressing challenges facing the ICT industry today?
Connecting everybody, having broadband follow the mobile miracle to be able to connect. Now we have over 5 billion people with mobiles. We need to have the target of the next billion and the next 2 billion, 3 billion to connect everybody with broadband. That's the platform on which all of the applications are going to be built.
Did ITU Telecom World 2011 meet your expectations, and did you get over the messages that you wanted to get over while you were here?
So my expectations actually were not about the trade show part, right, which had always been the tradition, but rather the expectations were built around the Broadband Leadership Summit, around the forum meetings, around the opportunity to meet with people, hear what they were saying, and share ideas about how do we get broadband and ICT deployed everywhere so that everybody can benefit. And that agenda, I thought, was excellent, and it actually met my expectations, and in some cases exceeded them. The conversations were very good. The meetings were packed. So, some people have said, well, gee, there's not as many people, but the reality is, for the content sessions, there were more people. Every session was jammed, and the discussions were really excellent.
And what about the key messages?
We have to get everybody connected. Everybody, if people are not connected, they can't benefit from the applications. It's all about the applications and how people use the ICT. But the enabler is the connectivity. So we have to focus on both supply and demand. And there were a lot of conversations about supply and demand. So it was about getting networks out and getting applications developed and getting the applications that people will use and benefit from.
How do you think ICT can best drive the development of the world, not just in economic terms, but also socially?
Social and economic and social development and benefits are linked. The extent to which people, the extent to which economies are growing, the extent to which people believe that their children have a better future than they do, leads to better social comfort. And also, as part of that, you have applications that are going to provide education, healthcare, government services, citizenship. So the two things are actually quite linked, and both of them are dependent upon high adoption rates. We've seen that with mobile, and I think we're beginning to see that with broadband. And when these two things come together, that's where we'll see the economic and social benefits increase.
You spoke at the forum sessions on Connected on the Move, which is about the mobile internet, and that is your daily work. How is the mobile internet evolution being financed?
Well, it's being financed now by the private sector. What we see, it's again, very similar to the mobile miracle. If you went back just 10 years ago, 15 years ago, nobody would have suggested 15 years ago that there would be 1 billion people who had mobiles. We were talking about whether we can bring, fixed telephone lines to people. We now have over 5 billion people. We have 5.8 or close to 6 billion devices that people have. Predominantly, it's been private sector funded. And what we're looking at is the next generation for mobile broadband. So moving from GSM to 3G, to HSPA Plus, to LTE, and it's going to be driven by the applications.
What potential business models are there out there, and how are they working?
So again, when we first saw mobiles deployed globally, nobody thought that anybody in Africa, Latin America, Asia would be able to afford a mobile. There were new business models developed. The most powerful one is called prepay, and it worked. So number one, when mobile started being deployed, and nobody knew what the business model was going to be that was going to lead to global adoption. There's something out there that we haven't yet figured out. On the other hand, if we follow that model, I believe that especially for the bottom of the pyramid, prepaid mobile broadband is going to be extremely important. We haven't seen that yet. because we haven't seen the deployment yet to the same level that we have for traditional mobile for voice. But I believe that that's going to be extremely powerful.
Do you have any specific figures on the growth in demand for mobile data and its consumption?
One of the things that we see, we have a study that we do every year. It's called the Visual Networking Index. And it's a 5-year rolling forecast of the data demand and data consumption across the globe and by region. And what we are seeing that on mobile networks globally, an average of a 92% compounded annual growth rate between 2010 and 2015 for the mobile data. In emerging markets, it's over 100%. In Middle East and Africa, what we are seeing is a compounded annual growth rate approaching 130% per year. In order for the networks to be able to cope with that and be able to meet this explosive demand, which by the way is being driven by video, there needs to be more spectrum. And the best spectrum for the next generation of mobile internet is the former television bands, the 700 and 800 megahertz. And in 2007, at the WRC, extremely important development. Basically the ITU designated 700, 800 megahertz as part of IMT. Very, very important breakthrough. What we now need to do is make that happen in reality. Region 2 and Region 3 are moving. There was a reservation taken by Region 1 because of the broadcasters in Europe. And yet, notwithstanding that, the UK and the northern European countries are moving very aggressively. We're going to see the switch off of analog television. We're going to see the transition. We're going to see the digital dividend. Unfortunately, many of the countries in the southern half of Region 1 have not moved because of this reservation. And because of that, they are not yet making this migration. There's an irony. In most of the southern part of Region 1, there are no television stations in these upper frequencies. They could have the digital dividend even before or without a digital transition. So we really need to drive the transition of spectrum at these great frequencies for propagation characteristics and move those into the licensed broadband so we can move rapidly and globally to 4G networks for mobile broadband. That is a prerequisite to have the reach in order to meet this explosive demand that we're seeing driven globally, whether it's in emerging markets or developed markets.
Can you tell us one thing that you think needs to happen if we're ever going to get any closer to the goal of providing more global citizens with more meaningful access to connected technology?
We're going to have to combine both the supply and demand. We have to focus on making sure that everybody has access to broadband globally, and a lot of that's going to be mobile broadband. And then we need to combine that with local content, local language, meaningful applications for healthcare, education, citizenship, and the like. So it's a combination of supply and demand.
Dr. Pepper, thank you very much indeed.